Good morning, church, and welcome. And I expect Abby and Bally have just said, my name is Tim, and it's great to be here. And church, didn't we have such a good time last weekend at the church day out? If you weren't there, you missed out at the church day out. And it was so good to be together in person in one room together and just to worship Jesus. And to Tim and Jackie, their message to us was so encouraging, but at the same time provoking and challenging. And I love their honesty and their vulnerability, especially Jackie and telling her story over the last 3.5 years. And then we were eating together and we did an amazing quiz, didn't we? We did an amazing quiz. I hope that you enjoyed the quiz. And it was so good to be together once again. Thank you to everyone that came. Thank you to everyone that helped serve in different ways and set down church together. Church where we are. And I announced on Church Day Out is that from the 19th of September, we are starting our in-person meetings every Sunday. Every Sunday we're going to be together. But we're no longer meeting at St. Edward's and we'll move into East Dorset Tennis Club. And I believe this is a better facility for us to serve our vision that God has given us. And it's going to be it's light, it's a good size. Potentially because of where we are, we're going to have less volunteers. So more people can come and enjoy God without thinking about, I've got to do this. And we're just excited about this new venue space. Hopefully you heard about it when Vicky sent an email out earlier on in the week, and there'll be lots more information coming in the weeks ahead. What is it going to look like and why we're doing it? But just exciting that we've got a new space. And the greatest thing, isn't it, that church is not the building, it is the people. We are the church. And when it comes to space, we try to find the best space that will serve us in the right location and to serve the vision God has given us. But the church is the people, no matter where we are. And today we're at our homes. So this morning I want to carry on our new series in many ways, because I spoke 2 weeks ago on love one another. And this morning I'm going to be speaking about forgive one another. Forgive one another. So if you've got a Bible, turn with me. We're going to read 3 scriptures to kick us off. And the first one is Matthew chapter 6, verse 14 to 15. Matthew chapter 6, verses 14 to 15. And Jesus is saying this just after he tells us about the Lord's Prayer. So this comes just after the Lord's Prayer. And he says this, verse 14. For if you forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. Wow. That is a big statement by Jesus. And then we're going to read Colossians chapter 3, verse 13. Colossians chapter 3, verse 13. And it says, Colossians chapter 3, verse 13, just finding it, and you'll probably find it too. Verse 13 says this, bearing with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgive each other, as the Lord has forgiven you. So you also must forgive. And lastly, Ephesians 4 verse 32 says this. Ephesians 4 verse 32. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you. So in these passages, Jesus and Paul in Colossians and Ephesians, he's saying that we have got to forgive one another. And Jesus says, if you forgive one another, I will forgive you. And that powerful, wow statement that if you do not forgive, your Father in heaven will not forgive you. But the thing is that forgiveness in the Bible is not a suggestion. It's not saying if you are able to forgive one another, or if you desire to forgive one another. It is a must. That's what this Paul says. You must forgive one another. It's like a commandment. As a follower of Jesus, we've got to forgive one another. And I want to say, and we're going to put it out on the table here in many ways right from the beginning, is that you and I and us all have been hurt by people. You know, people have said things to us over the years, and it's hurt us. It's wounded us. And they might not just be words. It's things that have happened to us, or things that they didn't say or didn't happen to us. And what's happened has really touched us. It's like knocked us back. You know what I mean? And it's like, wow, I didn't expect you to say that to me. Or I didn't expect you to do that. Or that really hurts. And we find this happens amongst our workplaces, with our work colleagues. It happens with our friendship groups, in our friendship groups. It happens even in our church family, that someone says something or doesn't say something, and that was painful. That wounded me. And it even happens in our family and our marriages, if we're honest, that things that are said or not said, that they hurt us. And we're like, oh, that really hurt. And as I'm speaking, you could probably think of things that maybe even now that you felt hurt by, you're still feeling hurt by, or things in the past that have hurt you. And maybe you've dealt with it, or you've never dealt with it. But we've all, I do believe that we've all had things that have offended us, that has hurt us, that has wounded us deep inside of us. I know from my own life is that I've had people say to me that you're not good enough, that you can't do that. I've had people look down upon me, or say words like, oh, you won't be able to do that, that's not going to happen. And it's just this sense of, like someone's hit you. I've had people say things behind my back, and then through someone else, they've told me what they've been talking about me in other circles. I've had people that I've trusted, and I've shared something with them, to find out they've gone on and shared it with someone else. And I felt, that really hurts, especially that one, when I've trusted you with something, and now you're saying, now I've found out that you've actually been telling other people. How can I share stuff with you again? And I think we've all got stories or situations where this has happened, like in work and friendship, but our family as well, and even church family, and it really hurts. And this is the thing, is that we live in a fallen and a broken world. See, God made something beautiful, and it was amazing, and it was good, and it was very good, and it was perfection. And sin enters, and it just it stained the world. And it stained the world, that caused evil in the world. It caused upset and hurt and sickness and pain. And one of the consequences of this is that people hurt us, and we get offended, that people say things, sometimes intentionally and sometimes unintentionally, but it affects us. And that's the effects of sin on this world and upon us, is that people are hurting one another. Will Smith. Yes, Will Smith. You did hit me right. Can you believe it? I'm about to quote Will Smith, and this is probably the first time and the last time I would ever quote Will Smith, because I don't agree with most of his stuff, but I do agree with what he said here. He said, throughout life, people will make you mad, disrespect you, and treat you bad. Let God deal with these things. They do. Because hate in your heart will consume you too. Throughout life, people will make you mad, disrespect you, and treat you bad. Let God deal with these things they do. Because hate in your heart will consume you too. I actually think that Will, if I can call him Will on first name terms, he what he's saying is true, right? Is that throughout life that people we feel disrespected, people have made us mad and treated us bad. And he's saying, let God deal with these things. Because if we don't let God deal with these things will consume us. That they will consume us. If one is carrying unforgiveness, it's like carrying, should we say, a massive theological book around wherever you go in your bag. And so you got a bag on, and you got my auntie, she didn't say something nice. She just rudely interrupted me about something that she was doing, and she said, "Oh, who cares about what you say?" And then you put that book as such, that unforgiveness in your bag, and then as another person, the bag gets heavier and heavier, and as you live your life, you're carrying all this unforgiveness and these things that people have said, whether it's small things and big things, and it starts to feel quite heavy, and you realize that everything you're doing in life is carrying this baggage of unforgiveness in our lives. And when he says, because hate in your heart will consume you too. And it's like, yes, it will consume us. See, the world is unforgiving today. It's unforgiving. How many times have we seen sports personalities or so-called celebrities is that they get one thing wrong and everyone remembers that one thing? Oh, that's that person who did that like 5 years ago. It works the same with us. The world is unforgiving. People in maybe our workplaces is that we forget to do something. We forget to send that email off, and then people are like, "Oh, you always forget something." And actually, well, you remembered the last 6 months to send the emails off in time, just one time, and now he is very forgetful, or she is very forgetful, or you forget to get some item from the warehouse, and they're like, "Oh," or you got the wrong item from the warehouse, and people are like, "Oh, you just make work so much harder. Well, I've worked here for a year and I haven't got the wrong item before." You know what I mean? The world is unforgiving. It's like one thing wrong and people remember it. And they don't forgive and move on. It's just such a small thing. And they just label you because of unforgiveness, because people want perfection. And we know we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a world stained by sin. And this is where forgiveness comes in, whether it's something at work, like they've forgotten something, or it's something someone said to you who you love and they've said something that really hurts, is that forgiveness is a must, as Paul says and as Jesus says. Forgiveness is not a suggestion. See, when it comes to unforgiveness, there's a couple of things that I think goes on. Number one is carrying unforgiveness will weigh you down. Carrying unforgiveness will weigh you down. If you're carrying something in your life where you're hurt by someone, or something was done, or something hasn't been done, you'll see them through that lens, and you'll treat them through that lens as well. Or you could potentially, you feel anxious about seeing that person again, or there's a dislike to those people because of the way they treated you. And it's like unforgiveness will weigh you down and stop the life the beautiful life God has given you, because everything is going through that unforgiveness and how you see that person. Number 2, unforgiveness causes disunity. Unforgiveness causes disunity. See, Satan wants disunity, especially in the church and in our families. He wants disunity. And when we have unforgiveness, we will be not in unity, but in disunity, because we can't forgive other people in church or our family. And Satan knows if we are in disunity, we are weaker, but those who are in unity are stronger. And so Satan wants there to be unforgiveness because it will cause disunity and the power of church and family. Thirdly, the very reason Jesus came was to forgive humanity. Jesus commands us to forgive one another. And the very reason that God himself, the Son of God, came from heaven to earth as a child to grow up, to forgive humanity of their sin. This is the very reason, the primary reason that Jesus came, was for forgiveness, and therefore we should forgive one another. See, forgiveness does not change the past, but enlarges the future. It does not change the past, but enlarges the future. I want to tell you a story from Luke chapter 17, a couple of verses 3 to 5. Luke chapter 17. Luke chapter 17. We'll be there in a minute. Luke chapter 17. It says this, verses 3 to 5. Pay attention to yourselves. If your brother sins, rebuke him, and if he repents, forgive him. And if he sins against you 7 times in a day, and turns to you 7 times saying, I repent, you must forgive him. It's the words of Jesus. See, now you expect the disciples and the people hearing him saying, well, Jesus, help us to forgive him. Help us to forgive those people that have hurt us and that have wounded us. Help us, God. We need your help. It's so hard to forgive. But no, it says this. The apostles said to the Lord, increase our faith. See, that's an unusual thing to say, isn't it? Jesus is saying, forgive one another. And usually most people would say, well, help us to forgive one another, Jesus. We want to get better at this. Help us not to carry on doing this. And no, but they say, increase our faith, Jesus. Increase our faith, which is a remarkable thing. They're saying, let us decrease and you increase. Let us put the perspective of our hurt and pain in the perspective of Jesus. Of Jesus. See, at the cross of Jesus Christ, he was nailed to the cross. See, Jesus had a nail put through his hand, on each hand, and on his legs. See, when we get hurt and pain, it's like a nail going into us. When someone hurts us, there's a nail that goes into us. And as Jesus was on that cross, all the pain and the sin and the hurt of the world was nailed to him. And then time goes on, and I think it's in John chapter 20, Jesus meets with his disciples, and they're all in the same room. Not Judas at this point, because Judas had already died, and the other disciples are there, and except for one person, that's Thomas, which is interesting as well. Why is Thomas not in the room with the other disciples? And Jesus meets with the disciples. Jesus meets with the disciples, and then Thomas comes along, and Thomas says, "Well, I want to see the marks on his hands and the spear on his side where the spear would have gone to. Thomas wants to see it, and some time passes. I think it's like 7-8 days. 8 days, I think it is. Passes, and then Jesus meets with Thomas, and Jesus says, Thomas, put your hand in my wound or scar. See, when Jesus was nailed to that cross, the pain and the hurt of the world was nailed into him. As the nails came off, there was healing and there was life and there was forgiveness, because actually the nails of the cross purchased our forgiveness. And with us, as people hurt us, it's like a nail going into us, and it hurts. But as that nail comes out, as we forgive one another, as Jesus forgave us on that cross, as we forgive one another, that there's a scar there, like Thomas experienced, but there's healing, and there's life, and there's forgiveness. See, as we forgive one another, we can't remove the past. We can't change the past, but it will enlarge our future. And at that time, Thomas, which we know as Doubting Thomas, which is really harsh in many ways. The church call him Doubting Thomas because that's unforgiving, because, he doubts once, and now the whole church for thousands of years later name him Doubting Thomas. The world is unforgiving. But as he's there and he puts his hands into the scars of the nails, that scar was in many ways a demonstration of forgiveness. It was a representation of forgiveness. You have been forgiven. It's been paid in full. And actually, when it comes to us, things hurt us, and we can't remove that. We can't remove the scar, but the scar is part of forgiveness. I want to end by saying this: forgive and forget rather than resent and remember. I believe that Jesus forgave us and forgets. When it comes to our things that we get wrong, our sin, he forgives and he forgets. It's said that he block out our transgressions. He removes our sin as far as east is from the west. As we come to him, he forgets it as well. And it's not like it's never happened, but he doesn't see us through that lens that we messed up and sin. He forgives and forgets, because if we don't forgive and forget, we're gonna resent and remember. And then when we see the people, we will remember what they've done for us. But I think in the forgiving and forgetting is that we remember Jesus, that he forgave me, that he nailed my mistakes to the cross. We remember that every single one of us is made in the image of God. We're not perfect, but we have likeness to God. We remember that this is a fallen world, that it was beautiful in its time and sin has stained the world. We remember that we must forgive one another.